That's a very moving and touching story. So let's now talk about ULM's educational activities, what they do, and why those educational activities are effective.
Yeah, Universal Love Ministries, we carry out educational activities simply because we believe and we know that here in Uganda, many people are ignorant. And we know that it is through education that the world can change. And not even to say that we are pioneering this, one of the human rights activists, Nelson Mandela, once he said that education is the only tool that one can use to change the world. So, Universal Love, we look at education as a very important key in bringing change, in bringing the acceptance of LGBTI persons in Uganda. Why do we advocate for education? Here in Uganda, many religious leaders, they have not enough information about LGBTI issues. Many have confessed that during their time at Bible school and other institutions, they were only taught about heterosexual relationships. Nothing was taught to them about same-sex relationships. And on top of that, there are some religious leaders who are leading the churches and leading the communities, and they have not attained even Bible training. Some, even here in Uganda, they wake up one morning and they say, "Praise, I feel God has called me to start a church." And they start churches and they start leading people. And yet these religious leaders, people believe in them, when in actual sense, some religious leaders, they are illiterate and they don't have enough information, enough data that can help them to reach out to their communities with the right information that can bring people to light and understand what is going on.
So,
and
Samson, let me interrupt again here. So part of your educational approach is to go directly to religious leaders as a way to convince them, and then they will educate the people who attend their churches. Is that right?
Exactly. Our aim number one is to reach religious leaders, because number one, we as Universal Love Ministries, we cannot reach everyone in Uganda. So, but these religious leaders, they reach many people in their communities. So we know that if these religious leaders, they are trained and they are educated and given enough information about handling issues like LGBTI persons, then they will go and reach their people in communities, in churches, and give them the right information that is required for the acceptance of LGBTI persons. And on top of that, when you look at all the homophobia and transphobic violence that has been happening here, it has been fueled by religious leaders. And they are doing this out of ignorance. So the best people to start with, they are religious leaders. So our listeners, I would like to inform you today that religious leaders in Uganda, they influence big part of life. They almost influence everything. They influence marriages in families. They influence education. They influence politics. This is why, like, if you look at institutions of Uganda, you find that this university belongs to Catholics. You find that this university belongs to Protestants. This university belongs to Muslims. And these religious leaders, they have a big voice. They even give commands to the government officials. Because in most cases, you find that these most of government officials, they also belong to a certain religion, and they respect what their religious leaders tell them. So therefore, at Universal Love Ministries, we believe that educating religious leaders and changing their minds towards LGBTI issues, it is a tool number one and instrumental if we want to maintain the progress that we are making in achieving freedom for LGBTI persons in Uganda.
Okay, so I think I understand that. What about your programs that are at schools or other non-church organizations? You do some educational activities there too.
Yeah, here we are reaching out in communities and educating them on love, tolerance, and inclusive dialogue and reconciliation, because we believe the public is also very important, because the people we are talking about, they are in public. So reaching them and educating them on issues of LGBTI persons, it is very important, because on top of that, the LGBTI persons, they live in these communities. Their parents are in these communities. Their friends are in these communities. So we feel if we go and educate them, they will understand who these people are, that they are part of us, they are part of this world, and they are creatures of God. And they need to be loved, because one being a gay does not make that person less of a human being. So, and people here come to understand that LGBT persons, they are part of our community. Then when it comes to going to schools and meeting youth and children, we understand that children and youth are part of our society. They are very important, and they are leaders of tomorrow. In fact, let me put it right in this way. We know at Universal Love Ministries that young people are members of community and the future leaders of the community. And therefore, they have the right and obligation to think about communities' beliefs and practices. And in fact, youth is best positioned to question the harmful practices, since they may find it easier to accept and then advocate for new ideas. So it is very important that if we are to bring change, we have to make these young people to be part of the change that we want to see in the world. Because these young people, they still have zeal, they still have time, they still have energy to go on and preach love, tolerance, acceptance, and make the world the way they want it to be.
So,
then
Samson,
we know.
Samson, let me interrupt again here. So you're educating the kids. Are you educating the parents too? And if you're educating the parents, is it a different type of education for them than for the kids?
Exactly. Of course, as education, as a system of education, different people, different ages, they have different design of the syllabus. So the syllabus that is designed for adults is different from the syllabus that is designed for children. And of course, we cannot, the training that we offer to kids is a different training that we offer to adults.
And
but
is that still different from the training to the religious leaders, or do the adults get the same training as the religious leaders?
And of course, religious leaders, they are leaders. So when we are training leaders, we give them the information that they need as leaders. And then there is this information that is given to the public. For example, here in Uganda, many people are not educated. Some don't know how to write and read. Or those who read, they can only read the local language. So, and this local language limits them to get much of the information, because much of the information is written in English. So we give much data to religious leaders simply because for them they can read English, some they can write and interpret. But when we go down to the community people, we have to teach them in their own language. We have to give them the data that really that they can accommodate.
church. Group 1 identified, number 1, challenge is LGBTI issues. In the church, talking about LGBTI issues is a challenge. You mention it, you are dead. And we feel this is a challenge that must be discussed, that should be discussed in the church, people understand, and it